Welcome to this deep dive. We've got some interesting sources you sent over looking at recent developments in the airline world.
Yeah, specifically focusing on Astana and then some pretty significant moves happening with South Korean carriers.
Exactly. So our mission, as always, is to unpack these updates, figure out the key insights, and, understand the bigger picture.
Sounds good. We've got Astana's U.S. plans hitting a delay, some financial worries around Air Seoul, and then a big approval for the Asiana cargo sale.
Right. Three distinct stories, but maybe quite connected. Okay, let's dive in. Where should we start?
Let's kick off with Astana. Their ambition to fly to the United States, that seems to be facing a bit of a delay.
Ah, yes, they were planning that for 2025, weren't they?
That was the goal, yeah. But now it's looking more like 2026, pushed back a fair bit.
Okay, and why the delay? Is it something specific?
It seems to boil down to the delivery schedule for their first Boeing 787-9s. They just aren't arriving when expected.
Boeing deliveries. That
Mhm.
sounds familiar, unfortunately.
Exactly. The Astana CEO, Peter Foster, he actually told Forbes Kazakhstan it's due to, and I quote, the general problems that Boeing is currently experiencing.
No mincing words there. So when do they actually expect the planes now?
He mentioned mid-2026 for that first 787-9.
Mid-2026. Wow, that's quite a slide from the original plan. What was that timeline again?
Well, the initial hope back when they ordered was early 2025. Then maybe late last year, the Kazakh government was suggesting late 2025. So mid-2026 is definitely another step back.
And remind me, how many 787s did they order?
They've got 3 of the 787-9s coming via Air Lease Corporation, that's a leasing company,
Right.
and then another 3 of the smaller 787-9s directly ordered from Boeing, though the article suggests there's maybe some uncertainty around those 8 now.
Interesting. Still, despite these delays causing issues for their U.S. launch, the CEO sounded somewhat optimistic. About Boeing.
Yeah, a little bit. He said, my personal opinion is that Boeing is already getting into shape. There have been changes made there, and I see them as positive. So maybe seeing some light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, so cautiously optimistic from the airline's perspective. Does the data back that up at all, Boeing's recent deliveries?
Well, sort of. If you look at Q1 this year, 2025, Boeing delivered 130 aircraft total, including 13 787s.
Uh-huh.
Compare that to Q1 2024, they delivered 83 aircraft, but that also included 13 787s.
So 787 deliveries were flat year over year for Q1, but overall deliveries are up.
Exactly. So maybe overall production is starting to ramp up, even if the 787 line hasn't quite shown it in those specific numbers yet. It suggests things might be improving, which could eventually help airlines like Air Astana.
Got it. So a potential positive trend, but Air Astana is still dealing with the immediate delay. Now, what about their low-cost subsidiary, Flyeristan?
Yeah.
Are they affected? Or any plans to sell it?
No, Foster was clear on that. No plans to sell Flyerstan. He emphasized how integrated their safety and operational stuff is, even though Flyerstan technically has its own operator certificate now.
Right, its own license to fly. And is Flyeristan growing?
Seems like it.
Hmm.
They're launching a new route soon, Almaty to Yining over in China, that starts May 18th using their A320s.
Okay. And speaking of fleets, the sources gave a quick rundown.
Yeah, Flyerstan is all Airbus A320s, 14 older ones, 11 of the newer Neo versions.
Okay.
Air Astana itself has a mix. A bunch of A320neos, some A321s, including 12 of the long-range A321LRs, which are key for their network, plus 3 older Boeing 767s, and they recently got rid of their Embraer regional jets, the E190s. Apparently, reliability was becoming an issue.
Interesting fleet dynamic. And that brings up the point about financial health, which transitions us nicely, I think, to South Korea and Air Seoul.
Absolutely, a very different kind of challenge over there. Not manufacturing delays, but serious financial concerns. Auditors are raising doubts about Air Seoul's ability to continue as a going concern.
Oof. Going concern. Doubts. That's never good. What are the numbers looking like?
Pretty stark. As of the end of last year, December 2024, their accumulated debts hit KRW 179 billion won. That's roughly 121 million US dollars.
Wow. Despite having record sales last year, right?
Yeah, that's the kicker. Record sales, KRW 326.9 billion, but the auditors still see a worsening business environment, very sensitive to things like exchange rates and oil prices.
Right. High revenue doesn't mean profit or stability if costs are out of control or liabilities are huge.
Exactly. And the imbalances are significant. Their current liabilities, the short-term debts, exceed their current assets by about 153 million US dollars.
Okay.
And overall, total liabilities are higher than total assets by about 95 million US dollars. That's what led the auditors to mention that significant uncertainty.
So basically they owe more than they own and they owe a lot more soon than they have readily available.
That's a good way to put it. And it's not new, apparently. This capital erosion where their equity is shrinking has been happening since 2019.
And didn't they default on a loan recently too?
They did. A loan from their parent company, Asiana Airlines. They missed a payment back in January this year.
Okay, so this is all happening while Air Seoul is owned by Asiana.
Correct. Wholly owned subsidiary.
And Asiana is in the middle of being bought by Korean Air. This must complicate things.
Massively. The plan is, or was, to merge Air Seoul and Asiana's other LCC, Air Busan, into Korean Air's own low-cost carrier, Jin Air.
Right, create one big LCC powerhouse.
Yeah, but Air Seoul's really weak financial state now.
Yeah.
Well, it throws a wrench in the works, doesn't it? How do you integrate a company with those kinds of debts and doubts hanging over it?
Definitely a major headache for Korean Air as they try to finalize this huge merger. But there was some positive news for the merger recently, wasn't there, regarding the cargo business?
Yes, exactly. A significant step forward. The South Korean government, specifically the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, approved the sale of Asiana's cargo division.
Okay, and who's buying it?
A smaller, currently all-cargo airline called Aviation. The approval came through at the end of March, and they're aiming to close the deal by the middle of this year, 2025.
And the price tag?
KRW 470 billion won, which is about 528 million US dollars.
A decent sum. And this sale wasn't just about Asiana wanting to offload it, right? This was tied to the merger approval process.
Absolutely crucial. This was basically a condition set by the European Commission to approve the Korean Air Asiana merger.
Ah, the competition concerns.
Precisely. The EC was worried that combining Korean Air Cargo and Asiana Cargo would give them too much control, especially on freight routes between Korea and Europe. Fewer choices, potentially higher prices.
So forcing the sale to Aviation maintains a level of competition.
That's the idea. It addresses those concerns and clears a major regulatory hurdle for the main merger.
Makes sense. So tell us about Aviation. What are they getting here? This sounds like a massive expansion for them.
Oh, it's huge. Right now, Aviation just has 4 converted Boeing 737 freighters and 1 older 747 freighter.
Pretty small operation.
Very. But they're acquiring a lot from Asiana Cargo. 4 more 747-400 freighters, 6 747-400 combi aircraft, those can carry freight and passengers, and 1 767-300 freighter, plus about 800 Asiana Cargo employees.
Wow, that transforms them overnight into a major cargo player in Korea.
Instantly.
How are they affording this? USD 528 million isn't pocket change.
Good question. Aviation's main owner is a private equity firm, Socius Private Equity. They put together an investment group aiming to raise KRW 430 billion.
Okay.
They've already secured KRW 250 billion. Some key investors include Inwa Precision, they make engine parts, and Hyundai Glovis.
Hyundai Glovis. Yeah, that's part of the Hyundai Motor Group, right? The car company.
That's the one, their logistics arm. And this is where it gets even more interesting.
Oh.
There are reports that other Hyundai affiliates, Hyundai Commercial and Hyundai Motor Securities, might be stepping in to provide more funding to cover the rest.
So Hyundai could end up being a major shareholder in Aviation.
Potentially, yes. The exact stakes aren't clear, but it could mark a significant move by Hyundai into the Korean aviation market, especially on the cargo side. Definitely something to watch.
Absolutely. A big industrial group like Hyundai getting seriously involved in air cargo could really shake things up. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What are the key takeaways for our listeners from these different threads?
Well, I think we've seen first how Air Astana's big U.S. ambitions are kind of on hold, directly tied to these wider Boeing production issues. It shows how interconnected everything is.
Right, global supply chains impacting specific airline plans.
Then you have Air Seoul, highlighting the internal financial pressures airlines can face even with good sales, and how that complicates consolidation efforts like the Korean Air Asiana merger.
Financial stability is critical, especially during mergers.
Or finally, the Asiana cargo sale to Air Incheon. It's a positive step for that merger, driven by regulatory demands from overseas, and potentially bringing a new major player, Hyundai, into the Korean aviation scene.
So fleet issues, financial health, regulatory hurdles, and industry consolidation all playing out.
Yeah, it really paints a picture of the complex dynamics in aviation right now. Seemingly separate events, but they all weave together.
Definitely gives us a lot to think about. And maybe a final thought for our listeners.
Hmm.
Considering all this, the delays, the financial troubles, the cargo sale, what could be the long-term impact on travel options and competition, both, in Kazakhstan and South Korea?
That's the big question, isn't it? How do fleet management choices, financial resilience, and regulatory oversight ultimately shape what flying looks like for passengers and businesses in these regions down the line?